Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, it's me Gamerturk and this is my weekly War of Underworld Q&A where I collect your questions from the week and then answer them one by one. As usual, we got normal questions where the spoiler line is the currently episode at the time of publishing, so if you watched episode 3 you are safe to watch the answers to those questions. We got opinion questions that may or may not be directly linking to Alicization and are not facts. These are stuff you asked me for my opinions or assumptions of what if scenarios, thus are my educated opinions in this case rather than direct citations from the novels. And then comes the spoiler segment at the very end, which you shouldn't watch if you want to keep watching the anime spoiler free beyond War of Underworld episode 3. Don't worry, when the segment arrives I will put up a proper spoiler warning so you know when to leave. Remember, I have a limited question quota, so I tend to merge questions that are similar in nature and also provide priority access to highly requested questions and questions by channel members and patrons. If your question is not included in this video, chances are I either answer them in a previous Q&A or explained episode very clearly, or you are just simply asking me to narrate the novel's content to you, which I will not do. That's just asking me to spoon feed you information. I'm here to enhance your understanding of the anime and the series, not to be something like audible. Please shy away from asking very direct spoiler questions like will this happen, will that happen? You'll see when it happens or doesn't happen, and I will go in depth when it does or doesn't. The only exception I made was in last week's Q&A regarding when will Asuna appear and will Kirito wake up questions, and I am not eager to make another exception. Timestamps to individual questions are in the description and the pinned comment, so if you're particularly interested in certain answers you can just skip ahead. Links to Sword Art Online light novels are also there, so if you want to read the books for yourselves to experience the journey firsthand, you can do so through those Amazon and Book Depository affiliate links and support the channel at the same time. This Q&A starts with some common misunderstandings I have seen before we actually start with the questions. A lot of you are confused about the diving times of Asuna and Gabriel. The anime showcased them to be diving around the same time, and they are diving around the same time, mind you, within 10 minutes of each other I can say for certain, but from what I can see of the reactions, the main confusion here is caused by a lot of people disregarding the fact that Underworld is currently running at 1000x flocklight acceleration, so about 1000 times the real world speed. Even diving only a minute late creates a setback of around 16 hours in Underworld time, so you can do the math yourself based on your assumptions whether Asuna dived only a minute late or 10 minutes late or somewhere in between. Hint, it is somewhere in between. Is War of Underworld only 12 episodes? Is one of those questions that I get way too often to not address in this video because people think my anime list is a reliable source of information when it isn't. This piece of information is either caused by incompetence or simply due to how they are forced to categorize anime by their underlying infrastructure. Knowing my anime list, both are equally possible, but no, War of Underworld is not 12 episodes long. For starters, the Blu-ray listings for War of Underworld had been revealed on day 1 of the War anime, and those listings clearly state that the second half of Alicization will be exactly 23 episodes. It's also been announced that these 23 episodes will be covered as a split core. This means that we will get 12 episodes, so core 1, then a single core break of around the same length, and then we will receive another 11 episodes at the end to wrap up War of Underworld. There are also rumors going on around that episode 23 will be a double-sized special episode. And let me be very clear here, these are nothing but baseless rumors. There isn't a single evidence of such a possibility. However, while it's a completely baseless rumor, I too believe there's a big chance that the final episode will be a double-length episode, but again, take that as what it is. It is just an assumption I am making because I know what happens in the novels and believe it would work better as a double-sized episode. There is not a single evidence supporting this assumption. My recommendation: just don't go to the likes of my anime list to get your answers, whichever series you want answers of. Big anime news sources can be good curators in terms of bringing the news together if you don't know where to look at, because they will have something on any series, but more often than not you'll be disappointed by the accuracy of their information. What you should do is finding a community platform for your desired series, whether it's SAO, Fate, Kaguya or anything else, and get your information from the dedicated community. In SAO's case, that would be SAO Wikia, SAO Reddit, my channel, etc. If you don't know where to start, a Reddit community of a series is the very first place you should visit to get the most reliable information and to learn if there are dedicated news sources only for that series. With those clarifications out of the way, which took about 5 minutes, it's time to start with our questions. So starting with the normal questions, which you can safely watch if you have watched up until War of Underworld episode 3. First question is, I'm still confused on why Alice is so important. If they're trying to seize one person, what makes them so special? I'm really starting to think this is just some kind of, oh, the project is Alice and her name is Alice, so she's very important. This is a very simple question in my opinion. The thing is, the capitalized Alice is pretty much the goal of the project. It's a complete coincidence, as Kikoka puts it back in episode 5 or 6, that the person they are looking for is named Alice as well. The funny part is, when they were actually looking for Alice, the person Alice, she was not the person they were really looking for as the capitalized Alice, because at that point, yes, she had broken the taboo index, but she had not done so at that time willingly on her own volition. She had accidentally tripped into the dark territory, which is why she had broken the rule, but what they're looking for is someone that actually broke a rule knowingly, completely willingly. Now Eugeo does this, but of course if you look at the real-time stuff, when Eugeo does this, they are kind of busy on Ocean Turtle because there's an entire raid going on and Eugeo kind of dies within, what, 2-3 minutes maybe in real world time, so Eugeo is a missed opportunity there. As for Alice, she does actually break the seal of the right eye, as you know from episode, what was that, 16, 17? And then she actually becomes the capitalized Alice they are looking for. Next question, what exactly are the Dark Knights of the Dark Territory and what do they do? Are they similar to Integrity Knights and defend the Dark Territory while attempting to raid the Human Empire? Do they have divine weapons and perfect weapon controls as well? Yes, they are the, let's say, quote-unquote equivalent of the Integrity Knights in the Dark Territory. The difference is Quinella does have the knowledge of making people, let's say, somewhat immortal. So someone like Berkuli has over 200 years of experience, and that means a lot. Because if you don't stay alive for that long, you need to pass on the knowledge. As you pass on the knowledge, certain things get lost and you don't have the same amount of progress going on. And that's the case with the Dark Knights as well. They are the equivalent of Integrity Knights from the Human Empire, but they are not as skilled, not as knowledgeable, etc. So they do not have access to things like perfect weapon control, enhanced armament, etc. But you will get to learn more about those details tomorrow, if I can actually manage to upload this video today. But yeah, Shasta's backstory will have a whole lot of knowledge on that, so I will not go into that spoiler territory for now. Next one, pretty sure everyone has figured this out, but just asking anyway. Star means he can easily use any object, right? This refers to Emperor Vecta, of course. We have seen on the screen that he has no stats attached, and yes, he is a super account, so basically he has no stat limited restrictions, etc. But there are more to super accounts than just stats, which we should discover, what, in about 6-7 episodes maybe? Just hang in there. Why did the guys from Gabriel's squad had problems reading Emperor Vecta from the interface? That's just anime original, I want to say, because in the light novels, as I mentioned in my explained video, the squad actually speaks English, they are fluent in English, so they can properly read Latin letters, etc. Since they have switched their main language from English to Japanese, when they see Latin letters, they need to, stumble a little, speak English instead. And of course, that's probably a measure to ensure, the Japanese audiences who don't know English can actually get a sense of how to read that name, what the name actually is. So there's nothing more to it, it's just a simple adaptation change. How did Eugeo and Kirito become as strong or stronger than Integrity Knights in almost no time? That's actually a really good question, and the answer is, one can argue if they have become stronger or not. You see, strength it's a vague term to describe things. If you look at it, Berkuli is definitely stronger than Eugeo, but the problem is, Eugeo was a whole lot more creative. When it comes to Kirito versus Fanatio, it's not that Kirito was stronger than Fanatio. When they had clashed their enhanced armaments, Kirito might not have won if it wasn't a perfect match for his weapon, because Giga Cedar is all about devouring light, the source of power from Solus, and then using it as its own source, and luckily Giga Cedar was facing a weapon that utilized Solus's light in that case, so strength is a vague term to describe it. I wouldn't say they have become stronger at that point compared to the Integrity Knights, they were just creative to circumvent their lack of strength in that case. Do you think they'll feature Gabriel's past after he, with some cut of spoilers there, so I could answer this in the normal section? Yes, have you watched our translated version of the episode 4 preview? You should. Next question. Well, you were talking about Asuna's scene messaging her friends, but I was thinking, what if Asuna used cell data, not Wi-Fi connection, unless it's known she used the Wi-Fi and there's no data on the ocean turtle? That is exactly the situation. The ocean turtle is very far away from the mainland and thus does not have access to regular data from cell towers, whatever, etc. you may have. It's all military equipment there, and thus it's a Wi-Fi that is using the military infrastructure in the middle of the ocean. Next question takes us to the opinion segment. Again, this is no spoilery stuff, my answers won't have spoilers either, so let's get into it. More or less a what if question: if say Eugeo survived from battle against admin and Kirito's floodlight isn't damaged, would Kirito teach Eugeo the dual swords technique as a high level Aincrad style lesson? It's more or less your opinion, and yes, it is my opinion. There is no statement that Eugeo would be unable to dual wield if that was the case. But the problem is, the way I see it, it all hinges on the fact that dual blades or dual wielding is not an inherent mechanic of Underworld. You see, dual wielding existed back in Aincrad but was never featured in Alfheim Online, which is where these sword skills are coming from into Underworld. So for all intents and purposes, dual wielding does not exist in Underworld, and the way Kirito achieves it is incarnation. So he is using his knowledge from SAO, he's using his knowledge from ALO, the manual knowledge that he has and the memories, and thus overwriting the main visualizer to thinking into it is possible. The key detail is that Eugeo never has those in-depth memories to achieve such an incarnation. He has never used dual wielding, he doesn't know how to dual wield, he doesn't have a past to make use of the incarnation to overwrite stuff within the main visual, while Kirito has. And thus, since there is no inherent dual wielding in Underworld, Eugeo wouldn't be able to dual wield either. I know your favorite arc is Aincrad, but which episode of each arc is your favorite and which is your favorite overall? Yes, Aincrad is my favorite arc. There's a huge nostalgia bias for me in picking Aincrad. It's definitely not the best arc, but it's still by far my favorite, including Progressive, but also not including in Progressive. I was always in love with Aincrad. Either way, let's answer that question. Which episode of each arc is my favorite? For Aincrad, I would say it's the final episode, and I'll be scene specific in these cases, to make my point. My favorite scene is when Kirito decides to actually face Heathcliff in that final episode and simply shares his farewells with everyone, and especially Klein's scene really hits hard for me, the way he uses the final day that he knows puts a lot of weight on Kirito's shoulders in an attempt to, make him back up, not fight Heathcliff in that case. That's a strong scene, all with Asuna, Egil, and Klein's farewells. I just love that scene and the entire episode. For Fairy Dance arc, that's gonna be controversial, but it's gonna be the moment, the episode and the moment where Kirito and Leafa realize that they are talking to Sugua and Kirigaya respectively, which causes both of them to enter a meltdown situation, and then Kirito handles it better than Sugua, and then everything goes back, etc. That's one of those scenes that I really love in Fairy Dance. I feel like it's the scene that really puts Fairy Dance into perspective, because it really shows that the incest argument is completely invalid. These two people don't know who they are talking to, Suga, in that case as Leafa, doesn't know she is growing feelings towards Kirigaya Kazuto's cousin because it's Kirito, it's somebody else, etc. It's a scene that puts everything into a nice perspective. For Eugeo, it has to be the first scene that Death Gun shows up and how much of an impact it has on Kirito. For the remainder of the preliminaries, he's constantly stressed out, not thinking clearly, being very reckless, etc. It really does affect Kirito, and the way he just clinges onto Shinon's arm and Shinon just understands what he's going through is one of the best moments. For Mother Rosario, it's... I don't want to single out anything, that's just a beautiful arc overall. Ordinal scale... would you laugh at me if I single out Klein's scene again with Furin Kazan? Where Eiji simply destroys his entire team, yet he doesn't care, rips the Ogma off and tries to fight back. That's one of those beautiful scenes. But the final fight between Kirito and Eiji along with Yuna's concert, that's, I feel like, a great scene. Kirito in Asuna's room reading her diary and then the rest of the scene more or less silent. That's one of the most beautiful scenes in the entire series, etc. As for the Human Realm arc, I'll go with Zakaria chapter, just to be a dick to the anime. Next question, that's a long question. So far most of the villains we've gotten in SAO are the ones generically evil and nothing more. I disagree, but we'll get to that. Sure, we do get some depth, like in SAO 2 episode 14 where Shinon says that her friend was getting stressed and in that reality he couldn't achieve anything. But other than that and a few other things like Kayaba not actively wanting to kill, unlike other villains, Queenella's god complex, every villain is black and white. Well, you just listed 3 villains out of, what, 5 or 6 villains? Not even that are not clearly black and white. But okay, let's continue. Sugo wants money, yes. Mind control tech and Asuna, yes. Laughing Coffin and Death Gun just want to kill, yes. Queenella wants to control everything, and no, there is more to Queenella, but we'll get there. Let's read the rest of the question. So the only interesting thing that comes from these characters is the conflicts they make for the hero. So my question is, do you agree with me? Do you want a villain that is morally grey in SAO? And if you disagree, tell me why. Yes, here we go, that was the question indeed. For Kayaba, I don't even consider him a villain. That's what makes him so good. He's just a random dude who has an ideal that has an extremely terrible outcome for the real world. And, well, Kayaba's arc is kinda ongoing as well, so let's not go deeper into that. As for Queenella, I do believe she's a great villain because she is essentially someone who sees floodlights as what someone like Kikoka sees, just a tool to achieve something. And what she is trying to achieve is becoming someone like Kikoka, Kirito, anybody in the real world that, you know, has an actual existence outside of the data realm. That's why when she is conversing with Kirito at the beginning of, what was it? No, at the end of episode 21, where Kirito is trying to confront whatever Queenella is doing is wrong, and Queenella simply answers, do you know what it feels like to live under the whim of a god that you can control, who can delete you the moment you do something wrong? And well, Queenella at that point is right, and that's why Kirito can't even answer that question. That's one of the things I love about Queenella. She is no different than anybody on the outside of Underworld. She has perfectly legitimate reasons to abandon this world, not caring about this world at all, and ascend to the real world to have some meaning of existence. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Of course, the anime doesn't do wonders explaining these cases. I feel like Alicization did good with Queenella, though it can be done better. Let's not go into that rabbit hole. But yeah, that's my opinion on SAO villains. You know, the likes of Kayaba and Queenella are pretty damn good villains. Well, someone like Death Gun, Subtilizer, they are not my favorites. Sugo, definitely not a favorite. But with that, we are moving on to the spoiler section. So if you don't want any information beyond the contents of Sword Art Online Alicization War of Underworld episode 3, this is where you take your leave. Thank you very much for watching so far, and please do leave a like, you know, it really helps before you leave. But yeah, with that warning, we are moving on to our first spoiler question. The next couple of questions are actually relevant to each other, so I'll try to make it a little bit quicker because my recording says I'm already at 24 minutes. First spoiler question. This is a bit late, but I just want to know what happens when Asuna and Alice meet. Do they fight? If so, does Asuna reveal she's Stacia or just a girl named Asuna? Their first meeting is quite heavy on the context, to be honest. In that case, Asuna just descends from the heavens, save a bunch of people, destroy a bunch of enemies, and then there is Alice, who is just looking at what the fuck is happening. There's all the people who are looking like, what the fuck is just happening? And then there is Berkuli, who is like, I think I understand what the fuck is happening. And Berkuli's presence is key there, which is a calming factor. His presence is really felt there. He is a major calming factor for both sides, for Asuna, for the people, for Alice. So he is very much in control of the scene. And he is aware that Asuna is not a god. So yes, after Berkuli puts out certain concerns and asks Asuna, Asuna does come clean, explain not everything, but certain things in understandable language for the people of Underworld. But yeah, Alice is she does admit she is going into a pissing contest, and the next question is, does that pissing contest between Alice and Asuna continue after Kirito wakes up and after Alicization? Yes it does, because Alice is just a proud knight who loves going into pissing contests. She does not belong. And the follow-up question to that, when Asuna reunites with Kirito and is talking about the other girls, she says Dual Bladed Kirito, that's what they call him over there. I feel like this is a bit of a stretch because his Black Swordsman persona was more present in SAO and for a longer amount of time. Also, Kirito only revealed his dual wielding in 2-3 weeks before SAO ended, so does that leave too much time to become known as the Dual Bladed Kirito? What are your opinions on this? Do you agree or disagree? I agree to a certain extent. The reason for that is certain players have more than a single unofficial title onto them. Like, even if you look at the clearing squad of Aincrad has like 2-3 different titles attached to them, all of them used just as equally, just as interchangeably, and people do understand what you're talking about if you use a different title. That's pretty much the case with the Black Swordsman persona as well. It was just Asuna's choice to pick one over the other. I don't think it matters all that much. I don't think it's a stretch by any means. But yeah, I agree to a certain degree that Black Swordsman was a more well-known persona for Kirito. But let's leave the same scene after 3 questions, because all of these happen in almost the same scene. I have 2 questions for you. I just read the lasting novel. I haven't read the lasting novel yet. Who is Lunaria? I never see or don't remember her. Neither does Reki until Mooncradle. The problem is Lunaria is very rarely used within the story, because you see there are 4 available STLs when 2 people dive without a god account, which is Kirito and Po, so that leaves 4 other STLs to be used by god accounts, because god accounts they have certain special abilities that requires an STL machine to use, related to incarnation of course, and thus if you have 4 god accounts, well, there has to be a 5th god account that's been created earlier that's not gonna be utilized in the War of Underworld, and that is Lunaria, the goddess of moon. She has been mentioned twice in the Human Realm arc, if I'm not mistaken. Should be both of them by Eugeo, maybe once in the anime, I don't know, but I remember for sure 2 times in the novels. But yeah, she is not utilized all that much. I believe she has somewhat of a context back in Mooncradle, not back in the future in Mooncradle. But yeah, we don't have much information on Lunaria. In Lasting, does Yui speak? That she doesn't say those in Lasting, by the way. She does that in Volume 16, Alicization Exploding. She chooses Sinon and Leafa to go to Roppongi Branch because the only 2 people who were relevant to the topic at that time was Sinon and Leafa. They had close contact. I explained this back in my explained videos as well when they showed the Alo scenes. A whole lot of people, aside from Sinon and Leafa, should not even have any knowledge at that point in time. People like Shilika, Lisbeth, Agil, Klein, they learn all of these later on. So that's why Yui specifically chooses Sinon and Leafa to call and send over to the Roppongi branch. final question. I read the novels, but it had been a while and I have a question. My question is simple. It's about the gods or super accounts in Underworld. As for Goddess Stacia and Emperor Vecta, these are accounts to which Asuna and Gabriel will use. Now the anime did try to showcase God of Sun Solus, God of Earth and Goddess of Moon were mentioned in the novel, but what about those accounts? Can anyone still access them or were they ever accessed by them? And if someone does log in as one of these, what would they be able to do? I mean, we do know that each god account has abilities. Where would I log in? Human territory, dark territory, somewhere in heavens. I know my question sounds stupid. No, it definitely doesn't. But can I make a mini video or a comment down explaining super accounts? That's actually a good suggestion. I should make a different video for the god accounts. But let me answer this very briefly. There are 5 god accounts in Underworld. Stacia, the goddess of creation, is the first one. And then there are Terraria, which is the goddess of earth. There is Solus, the goddess of sun. Then there is Lunaria, the goddess of moon, and then Vecta, god of darkness. Again, take the god and goddess terms very lightly because, as we know from episode 5 or episode 6, the 4 originators who created Underworld dove in with god accounts, the super accounts, one of which was Vecta, one of which was definitely Stacia, but that means one of the 5 god accounts was not even used. But yes, overall, the accounts are created to be used, but Wrath never dives in to intervene with their simulation after the creation, etc. So they are like just god accounts, moderation accounts that are there just in case. Yes, they can be accessed, yes, most of them will be accessed, and I'll probably make a different video when I feel like it, but thank you for the suggestion, that's definitely a good idea. But it's already over 30 minutes of recording, covers the entire Q&A session. Hopefully I can edit this fast enough, and I'll see you tomorrow, or rather Sunday, with Alicization Explained for episode 4. Until then, stay cool.